Kate Falcha, welcome to Irish Granny Helen. This is actually Psychics and Psychos, Part 1, The Mysterious Disappearance of Kyron Horman. And Denise will be joining me in Part 2, but I'm going to give you the background to this really sad, really disturbing story. It's been 15 years. Okay, so let's talk about little Kyron. He was born September 9th, 2002 in Portland, Oregon. His father's name was Kane with a K, who worked as an Intel engineer, and his mother was Desiree Young. They were married, but she left him when she was 8 months pregnant with Kyron because she found out that he was being unfaithful to her. They did get divorced. In 2004, they settled on shared custody. Desiree gave Kane full custody after that because she got diagnosed with kidney failure and went to Canada for treatments and couldn't take him. So he went to live with his father and stepmother. She required extensive medical intervention and was really sick for a long time. But she was still very much a part of his life. When she came back, they spent time together every week. She didn't just abandon him. It was an unfortunate situation. But it was difficult co-parenting, and we're going to get into this more. Now, all of my resources were all over the place. There is a lot of information. There are full podcasts dedicated to this case. I listened to 4 episodes of True Crime Garage. They did a pretty good job, but it's not entirely up to date. I listened to an interview with Desiree Young, obviously his biological mother, and she obviously has a point of view. And I've looked at a lot of up-to-date updates from the Oregonian. The law enforcement has renewed its interest. They're, doing things like more technologically advanced DNA stuff. They've done an age, not regression, but like an age progression photograph of him. It's incredible how a kid can potentially change from the age of 7. He would now be, 22? Is that right? 15 years, yeah. Okay, Desiree stuffed her feelings. She said she did not want the child to feel the tension, so she went out of her way to be good about the relationship with the stepmother. In 2007, Kane married Terry Moulton. This is the woman that he was having a relationship with when Desiree was pregnant. She's a substitute teacher, and they have been involved ever since the time that Desiree was pregnant. In December of 2008, Terry had a little girl called Kiara. Now, I'm going to go a little more detailed into Terry's life later in this presentation. But first, we want to do kind of a chronology and overview of what happened with Kyron. Kyron was a student at Skyline Elementary School near Forest Park, which is outskirts of Portland. In the year before he disappeared, his mother says that when he was with his mother, Desiree, he would cry. He wouldn't want to go back home. He couldn't tell her what was wrong, but something was really wrong. His behavior changed. It's not that he became naughty and was acting out. It was he was anxious and sad and upset. Just didn't want to go home. Desiree really wanted custody of him because she had finally gotten her health under control. She said Kane's house was a divided house. In June, well, before he disappeared, at one point, Terry actually called Desiree and said, "Take him, come and get him. I can't deal with him." So what happened to Kyron? The father wouldn't go along with it. What happened to him? June 4th, 2010. This is the initial story. Terry took Kyron to school, and she stayed when she got there with him for his science fair, and there was a talent show to follow. She borrowed Kane's big white truck for the day, which was unusual, because she said, "Well, I need room to carry the diorama for the science fair back home." Actually, that wasn't really true, because the dioramas were supposed to stay overnight. She got there with Kyron earlier than any of the other parents. Some teachers noticed that and thought that this is unusual. There is a photograph of Kyron standing very proudly in front of his diorama, and it's time-stamped. It's very intentional, because immediately after that, at 8:45, immediately after the picture, which is time-stamped, Terry says she left the school. She says that she and Kyron headed down to where they would part, and he went one way, she went the other, and she watched him go down the hall to his classroom. She didn't watch him go into the classroom. She watched him go down in that direction, and she went out the door of the school building to the outside. But this story is not true. A bus driver one of the bus drivers saw Terry walk out with Kyron. And if she'd been standing where they parted ways, she would not have been able to see him walking down the hall to his classroom. And a grandmother who was waiting outside also saw her come out with him. And she's very distinctive. She had red hair. So the day progressed. His teacher thought she'd seen him earlier, and then he's not in class, so she marked him absent. At 3:30, the school bus came, and Kyron's dad, Kane, and the stepmother, Terry, and Kiara, the baby with the stroller, went to pick him up, meeting the bus, and Kyron wasn't on the bus. So they called the school, and the teacher said, I marked him absent. He wasn't here for class. So they reported his disappearance to the police at 3:45 p.m., and the search began almost immediately, 4:33, within the hour. Terry's story, just to reiterate, at 8:45, she left him at the school. She ran errands, and she described in pretty big detail. She left the school. She went to 2 different Fred Meyers. She was looking for over-the-counter medication for Kiara, who she says had an ear infection and was sick and fussy. And so she couldn't find it at the first Fred Meyers, so she went to the second Fred Meyers. At 10:10 to 11:39, she drove around to soothe the baby with the movement of the car, because she had an earache and she wanted to get her to sleep. The truth is that her daughter had that earache 2 weeks before, and had gotten a prescription from the doctor for an antibiotic and had been well. So there's some conflation going on there. She says she went to the local gym. Now she gets the child quiet, so of course the logical thing is you take her to the gym and put her in the daycare at the gym at 12:40. I'm sorry, until 12:40. She got there at 11:39. She stayed till 12:40. She arrived home by 1:21. She posted pictures of Kyron at the science fair on Facebook and made a big deal of, while she was in the gym, walking around showing everybody this picture, except nobody reports her being there after 10 minutes, and she didn't lift weights or do anything. Search efforts for him were extensive. They were focused on a 2-mile radius around the school and on Suave Island, 6 miles away, including the search of the bridges. And I should say at this point, I probably should have said it sooner, nobody has ever been charged in this disappearance. There have been suspicions, but nobody's been charged, but nobody's been well, Terry has not been charged, but she's not been exonerated. Some other people have been cleared, but she hasn't been cleared, and we'll see why. But just to be very specific, she has not been charged. I'm just presenting the case. I'm not making accusations. June 9th of 2010, the Hormans made a public statement. They asked for the public help with the search to try to keep the focus on Kyron. June 12th, 300 trained rescuers searched the grounds near the school. The search went on for 10 days. It was the largest in Oregon history, and it brought more and more people until they had 1,300 searchers from Oregon, Washington, and California. They posted a $25,000 reward, and then it later went up to $50,000. On June 10th, mid-search, the cops were told that Terry had offered a lot of money to a landscaper to kill Cain. Now, there's more nuance to this. If you follow up on a lot of these stories, they do change over time. The landscaper's name was Rodolfo Sanchez, and he signed a deposition under oath. The 5 months before the child's disappearance, she approached him working in her yard and asked him to kill Cain. But later, the story came out a little bit more specifically. Terry signed a deposition and denied it. When the truth came out, the truth was she approached him, took him out to lunch, and then spent the whole time telling him how difficult Cain was and how Cain walked around with $10,000 cash always and a laptop, and how easy it would be to rob him, and he should be careful because, oh, what if something happened to him that was a little bit more permanent while he was being robbed. So what Sanchez said is he didn't call the police at the time because she didn't literally ask him, but she hinted big time. And as soon as he saw the stuff on the news, he thought to himself, oh my God, that's that woman who was, wink, wink, nod, nod. So that's when he went to the police. So they wired him up and got him to confront Terry while he was wired, but they didn't get enough evidence and they couldn't make an arrest. June 28th, Cain filed for divorce when he heard this story, and he got a restraining order against her, and he took the baby. They got divorced, and Terry got supervised visitation only, but she later will find that she did not abide by the terms of the divorce settlement. She pretty much distanced herself. She failed 2 polygraphs. Law enforcement was seeking the person seen inside her truck outside the school that day. Somebody was seen inside that truck. IDing that person would have been critical to determining what happened to Kyron. So time goes by, and she's offered a 3rd polygraph and refuses and walks out in a huff. July of 2010, a grand jury subpoenaed friends of Terry, and the one that the police focused in on was a woman named Dee Spicer. She admitted to having close communication with Terry, gave her advice and support, not in the best interests of Kyron. Law enforcement said that this woman was cooperative, allowed a property search, underwent 3 hours of questioning, and eventually got immunity for everything she said. On the day of the disappearance, she was gardening for a homeowner and had 3 hours of unaccounted time. She claims that she didn't leave the property. But when the cops investigated and they talked to the property owners had a different story. They said Dee Dee was working in their yard, and lunchtime rolled around, and the other members of the crew were all there. Her truck was there, but nobody could find her for 3 hours. Dee Dee had also helped Terry buy untraceable cell phones when Kane moved out. She would not have been my friend, Dee Dee said, if I had thought that she was capable of foul play. So August 2010, Desiree, the bio mom, Kane, the bio father, and the school principal all testified under oath to a grand jury, but there was no indictment. By November 29th, the search had cost $1.4 million, the biggest search in Oregon history, and had brought in 4,257 tips. May of 2017, so this is 7 years later, they had a second grand jury, and they're still hearing evidence. Now, I don't know if they're still hearing evidence today. When the article was written, that was true. The case is still active and ongoing at the time of this article in 2017. And July of 2017, they had more searches based on this grand jury information with no results. So let's go back in time a little bit. June 1st of 2012, Desiree Young, the mother, sued Terry, the stepmother, in civil court, saying she was responsible for the disappearance of Kyron. She sued her for $10 million in damages, and she said that she didn't want the money, she wanted her son. In the lawsuit, she alleged that Terry kidnapped Kyron. Now, this is an allegation. No charges have ever been filed. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. August 15th of 2012, Terry made a motion to delay this trial, and it was denied. July 30th of 2013, the lawsuit was dropped because it was interfering with the law enforcement investigation, and I'll have more to tell you about that as we move forward. In 2016, Terry appeared on Dr. Phil. She had been advised to say nothing. She said she wanted to, but all the lawyers had told her not to. She just denied any involvement. She claimed there was a man in a white Ford pickup parked on the highway, Highway 30, near a 7-Eleven, kind of near the school, who was acting strangely, pacing back and forth in front of the 7-Eleven, and she thinks that he's responsible. So then I watched a very difficult YouTube video of an interview with, I guess, a podcaster. I should have paid more attention. Interviewing Desiree, his mother. And it is painful to listen to this poor woman talking. She said the fact that Terry borrowed, she listed Desiree's version is kind of a counter story to Terry's. She said Terry borrowed Kane's truck to transport the diorama home, but the diorama was supposed to stay. So that wasn't true. And everybody knew that ahead of time. Terry showed up very early with Kyron to the school. That was extremely unusual. They don't know why that happened. Possibly to be sure the teachers saw her there. She made a huge issue of taking this photo with the timestamp in front of the diorama right before she left. She immediately after the picture walked out of the building with Kyron. She was seen by several eyewitnesses outside. So she went to these two Fred Meyers. She said she was there to buy cold medicine, but Kiara had been sick 2 weeks earlier, so this story was untrue. They'd given her antibiotics and she was better. She claimed she had to go to the second Fred Meyer because the first one didn't have the prescription she needed. It was over the counter. And there is video of her pulling in, and Kyron is not seen on the video. But his mother said that Kyron was the sort of child that if he was little, he was very small. If he was sitting in a big truck, it was entirely possible that you wouldn't have seen him. And if he was told to sit there and don't move, he was the kind of child who would have sat there and not moved the entire time that Terry was in the store. So after this, her location was unknown, except for her phone records. She was seen by witnesses at various sides of the road at different times off of the Skyline area. She was seen pulled over. Her phone was out of signal for a long time, but then it began to ping at 11 a.m. driving down Highway 30. She was seen checking Kiara into the care at the gym and seen walking around talking to people, but never seen on their indoor security cameras actually working out. She was showing practically strangers the photographs of Kyron on her phone. She claimed she had just injured her leg because she dropped a weight on it, but it looked like a big scrape from something uneven and jagged, and she hadn't been lifting weights. She didn't work out. She was there for about between 15 and 18 minutes. She gave several interviews to the police, and the timeline changed. The first timeline didn't mention the gym at all. And, the investigators are asking, well, what's going on here? Where was she? Desiree caught her on the computer. I don't know why they were even in the same room, but she caught her on the computer, and Terry got really angry with her, didn't want her snooping. She was typing up a new timeline so she could remember it. And then Desiree said something really moving. She said, I can tell you 13 years later, so this is a couple of years ago, every single place I went to that day, I know what I ate for lunch. I can tell you everything I did that day. That's the day the world came out from under me. And Terry can't figure out where she was and what she did. She said, it took me a while before I offered Terry up. In other words, before she actually went to the police. She said it was awkward as time passed because my feelings couldn't be concealed. It was really uncomfortable to be with her and to watch her behavior. Like they did, news updates and that kind of thing. You can see them. It's something else. She never acted sad. She was going out of her way to lead a normal life, getting her hair done, going to the gym. She said, I could barely function. This is Desiree saying, I could barely function. I didn't want to live after Kyron. It was really hard. It was so glaring. There was just no other person that could have been responsible. The cops were very good. They didn't focus too early on her because her boyfriend, I copied her statement and I don't see what I meant here. Her actions, all the evidence, they really started focusing on her. Desiree said, they went out of their way to exhaust every other angle and suspect. They ruled out every school parent in the whole school. They found their whereabouts. They ruled out every registered offender in the area. Every house in the neighborhood was searched, and the occupants were pinned down to where and what they were up to. Every single possible other person had an alibi except one. I should say, except two, Desiree said. Terry and her friend, Dee Dee Spicer. Dee Dee was 2 miles away from the school landscaping and then was missing the same time that Terry was missing, not answering her phone. Because her phone was in her car on the property she was landscaping, but she wasn't there. Dee Dee was picked up by Terry. The DA hoped to flip her for immunity. And Desiree says, and now these are Desiree's words, and I don't know what she refers. She wasn't forthcoming about it. I think they're holding this close to their chest. She said today, that would have been 2022. No, 2023. She said there's physical evidence involving Dee Dee. She said that Terry was using burner phones with minutes that she put on them to communicate with people. The police were able to get the phones where Terry had dumped them. Dee Dee took them to the spot where Terry had thrown away the phones. There is now, Desiree is very kind of I don't know, I can't think of the word, like not being very open about this, very careful about what she says. There is communication in the form of photos on the phone that are physical evidence. They imply guilt and lies. She said Dee Dee pled the fifth, but because she has immunity, she can't be prosecuted. So here are some what Desiree calls missed clues. At the first press conference, it was obvious that Terry realized that Kyron's disappearance was huge, a big deal, not just a blip on the screen that people would forget. She might have thought that he's just a 7-year-old kid, not even living with his mother. She lives far away. She didn't realize it could be the biggest case in Oregon history, which is what it's turned out to be. Desiree told her husband, now Desiree is remarried, and in the hours after Kyron disappeared and they did their initial thing to the press, Desiree told her second husband, her now husband, I believe his name is Tony. I wrote it down. We'll get to it. She said, "You keep her away from me. Keep her away from me." Desiree said that Terry didn't like it, that Terry couldn't convince Desiree that that the fake Terry was the real thing. Desiree said, "I was real. What you saw with me was real. You knew what the score was." And Terry didn't like it. She couldn't hide how she felt. Terry was questioned by the wrong investigator. This is really rather a sad thing that happened. Terry was on the ragged edge. She was very possibly ready to spill her guts. And it was unfortunate that they sent the wrong guy to question her. She was shook and ready to talk, but they used the wrong approach. She had developed a relationship with one of the other investigators, Terry had, and she trusted her, and it's too bad they didn't use the right one. It's so important to use the right investigator. When a rapport has been built, it can potentially get answers. We lost our opportunity at that moment, and we'll never recover from that, Desiree said. When Terry came from failing the polygraph, she tried to justify herself. She was very upset. She told Desiree, "I want you to know I loved your son." At which point Desiree said she went into a rage and had to walk out of the house because of the past tense, which, to be fair, is not necessarily an indication of anything. Terry failed the second polygraph with the FBI and got into a new timeline as a result of this questioning after this failed polygraph. Tony is the husband, Desiree's husband, new husband. So Kane, Tony, and Desiree confronted Terry. They got her into a room and shut the door, and the three of them confronted her. And Desiree said to her, appealing to Terry's motherly instinct, if it was Kiara, little baby, if it was Kiara, and I was the last person with her, would you not want me to do everything humanly possible to clear myself? 5,000 polygraphs if I had to. She said, we have to find Kyron. And after that, Terry was asked to do a third polygraph, and she left in a huff. More recently than the original investigation, they have found DNA in the bed of the pickup. You know, DNA's gotten more sensitive, and they found DNA in the bed of the pickup. The police and the FBI confronted her with this, and Terry stopped cooperating. Kane moved out to Kiara. Terry was a suspect in the murder for hire. And, we talked about this already. But what happened right at this time, and this is interesting, the Casey Anthony case happened, and everything came to a stall. The Oregon police were worried that no body cases wouldn't stand up in court, that they couldn't press charges, it would be premature, like with the Casey Anthony case. So that's when Desiree said, well, this is unacceptable, and sued Terry for to force her to accept responsibility, maybe get evidence that could be used in criminal charges. But the DA would not cooperate with Desiree's suit. She knew if she insisted, it would negatively affect all the families afterwards that came with different cases. They would not be able to get information from the DA. You know, it was just this sort of Machiavellian machinations of the DA's office. She believes that someone with the guts in that office to go up against Terry in court, that they will be able to convict her. Allegedly, you're innocent till you're proven guilty. She said, I don't care if she goes to prison. You know, she's not about that. She said, I want my son home. I want to put it in that place where we're not on that roller coaster of emotion, looking at every child in the grocery store that looks like it could be Kyron. Can you imagine? We want to be where we're not still looking for him all the time. I want him home. What I want is 5 more minutes with him. Oh, God. If she didn't do it that day, okay, I'm a reasonable person, but I want to be able to put it to rest if that's what she did do. Kane was in an ugly custody battle with Terry, and he asked Desiree to take Kiara. She told him, listen, you need to get to know your own daughter. You need to not look for a savior. You need to be a better person. She says, I was not going to rescue. I was not going to save Kane. She said, but he keeps having people come in and help him and take responsibility out of his hands. Desiree warned him, you need to protect that child. You need to protect Kiara. She told Kane, I will hunt you down if you ever let Terry have visitation. But Terry's not adhered to the agreement made in the courts. She's barely paid any child support. She won't sit with law enforcement and clear herself, which was part of the agreement. She will not navigate supervised visits. She just sort of took off. She has done none of the things she's supposed to have done. Eventually, Kiara attended Kyron's school. She's 16 now, so this was 2 years ago. She's 18 now. Probably out of high school or finishing high school. And Desiree said it's just painful to look at her because she looks like Kyron. She said she ran into her recently and just, you know, she knew her when she was little. She helped take care of her when she was little. She said she had a yearning to hug her and she cried. She said, poor Kiara, you know, who is this crazy lady? She says, I miss her. I was so involved with her when she was little. More evidence today has shown up, but there's been no serious grand jury attempt since. And she said it'll take new people within the system in Multnomah County to get this pursued. She says it's the worst kind of evil, and we implore Terry Horman to cooperate with investigators to bring Kyron home. She says life keeps going on, and I'm still stuck in June of 2010. Kyron's still 7 years old to me. So let's look a little bit at Terry a little bit more clearly. She has not been charged. She's not guilty of anything in the eyes of the law. She's not been cleared. They haven't been able to eliminate her as a suspect. Over the years, she's had a lot of issues. There was a restraining order put out against her because she threatened her boyfriend at the time with a knife. She got arrested for a DUI, almost twice the limit, and had to take alcohol classes. She confessed to Kane that she drank when he wasn't around just because she was so stressed out. So the police, you know, they checked her phone and it didn't match her alibi, but keep in mind she had the burner phones, right? And they checked those too. They discovered from those that she was on Sawbrae Island, which was a riverine island, the rivers all over Portland, and she was on this gigantic island in the middle of the river, 5 or 6 miles from the school. Never admitted it. Can't remember. No excuses. So after leaving the school, she ran errands. She drove her daughter around. She went to the gym. She said she worked out, but she didn't. She went home. And there's a lot of questions being raised. Who takes a sick child that's taken you almost an hour to calm down? Who takes that child to the gym and dumps her at the daycare? She didn't work out. Eyewitnesses said they didn't see her after 12. She failed 2 and refused a 3rd polygraph. She wouldn't cooperate with the investigation. I told you what she said to the landscaper about her husband. So 22 days after Kyron disappeared, the cops told Kane about this, event with the landscaper. One of the things that is not talked about too much is she had an older son, James, who was a teenager, and he lived with them, with eventually Kyron and Kiara. And she likes to tell people that there was enormous tension and upset between Kane and her son, James. We'll get to that in a minute. My notes are scattered because I looked at so many different sources, so bear with me. Let's talk just a moment about her friend, Dee Dee Spicer, who was seen June 4th at the school, or in the area of the school. She tried to change her name, Terry did, in 2010. She told the judge that she was notorious, the name was notorious, and she was having trouble getting jobs, and she wanted to start a new life without the stigma, and the judge said no. So what do we know about her background? She was born in the middle of March in 1970. She was adopted by 2 teachers. She was their only child. Nobody knows who her birth mother is. She told her second husband that her family was prominent. Her biological family, nobody knows who they are, and her adoptive parents were just, teachers. Her parents did give her everything growing up, every single thing she wanted, including as an adult, tens of thousands of dollars. Her father was obsessed with running track. She ran track. She was athletic. She ran track. And apparently he was like a personal trainer or something for her. She was married twice before she married Kane. It's when she had her son James, January of 94, named James for James Bond. She was divorced from her previous husbands because of infidelity. She moved back in with her parents and got a job at McDonald's. She went into McDonald's management training. When she remarried, her new in-laws had interesting things to say about her. They said that they felt that she sucked up to them, that she tried way too hard to make brownie points with them. If they were coming home from a trip, she would show up unexpectedly at the airport with bouquets and balloons and candy and woo-hoo, She wrote them poems, and her former father-in-law said that he never trusted her, that she tried to impress them all the time. She convinced their son, her second husband, to adopt James. And at that point, she kind of turned on the in-laws and started chastising them for spending money if they went on a trip or whatever. She accused them of trying to spend James's inheritance. In 1998, she was in an accident and had a head injury and had problems for well over a year with migraines and issues from this accident. I think that's a significant moment. So before I'm trying to figure out when this happened. Okay, so her second husband paid for her master's degree, for her to go to college and get her master's degree. Although he wanted to go to college, he spent the money on her instead. But she never really taught full time. She did substitute teaching. She was observed being overly strict with the students, but then she also gave this impression of just being such a devoted teacher. After Kane filed for divorce, after the hitman story, he said, "I know a lot of things now that I didn't know before. Now I think there's a huge problem. I don't know what she's not capable of at this point." She had problems with a roommate. She'd move in with a roommate who would take her in, and then she moved all of the roommate's possessions outside, and they got rained on, and then she didn't understand why all of her books being ruined made the roommate upset. So it's just sort of oblivious to the respect for other people. In 2005, she became a gym rat, and she underwent all kinds of mood changes. She became an excessive exerciser, and she was on a diet, and she took over-the-counter stimulants, and she just got really difficult to deal with. She competed in this big bodybuilding competition and came in fourth, and then she stopped doing it. One of the interesting things that one of the articles I read mentioned that I hadn't known before, I didn't put it in this presentation earlier, is that when she and King got married, they got married in their bathing suits. Who does that? King found out later that Terry had called Kyron's teacher every day for updates on Kyron's behavior in the second grade. Kyron didn't have the reputation for being a problem. The teacher color-coded behavior. The kids got green, yellow, blue, whatever, and depending on what color, I guess a card you got every day, determined how good your behavior was that day. Green was the best. She wanted to discipline Kyron anytime he had an evaluation that wasn't a perfect green card. He'd be sent to his room, not allowed to leave his room, grounded, no playtime, no movies. This was a 7-year-old. They frequently argued about disciplining him, she and his father. She often emailed Desiree with complaints, and there was that one time that behind Kane's back, she said, "Come and get him." She had postpartum depression after the birth of Kiara in November of 2008. It manifested in irritability and spending sprees. King couldn't keep up with her spending. She went to the gym and complained that he complained about her weight. But his story is she was the one who was on the diet pills and the weirdness about her weight. So James was a teenager at the time. It's interesting to hear what he has to say. Terry says that Terry complained to other people that Kane was mistreating James and was difficult and expected too much from him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. James said that Kane was calm and reasonable. James was a reader. He would read 16 hours a day if left to his own devices. But Terry ginned up, accelerated her complaints, accelerated her narrative that he and Kane didn't get along, and eventually sent him to live with his grandparents when Kane was away for work. And she also called Desiree to come get Kyron when Kane was away from work. So it's an interesting pattern here. James went on to thrive with his grandparents and grew up just fine. So that's the story. That's what I have, the background for poor little Kyron. He's never been seen again. There's no indication of what may have happened to him. Once again, innocent until proven guilty. Nobody's been indicted. Nobody's been charged. And a number of people have not been cleared. So having said that, I will be getting together with Denise and we'll see what we can cook up. I don't know how easy it's going to be to get an exact date and time of births for a lot of the people involved. We'll see what we can do. So stay tuned. It'll be coming up in the very, very near future. And in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and Slán go fóill, slánte.